Okie dokie. So we're going to be starting our new unit today called Statistics. And the first thing we're going to talk about in our unit Statistics are called Statistical Questions. So we use, as human beings, we use statistics to help us answer questions about ourselves and about our world. And there's something called the statistical process, or it's kind of like a scientific method where you follow certain steps to answer your question. So the first step is to have a question. That's what we're going to talk about today. And we have to make sure our question is what's called a statistical question, which is what we're going to talk about. After you have a question, you gather data from a population or group of people that it would be appropriate to answer that question with. After you gather your data, you would show your data or organize your data and show it on maybe a graph or a chart or a table. And then after that, after you've organized your data, you might have to use different mathematical methods to find an answer to your question. Okay, but we're going to start out with the first step, and that's thinking about what's called a statistical question. So we're going to be on page 5 of the new packet. If you don't have the packet, of course, you could print it off of Google Classroom, or you can kind of do the work with me on a separate sheet of paper. So there's two types of statistical questions. One's called numerical statistical questions. And this is when you have to gather numbers or data values that are numbers to help you answer your question. You also have to answer this question by collecting a variety of data. So if you only ask one person to get the answer, or you only have to ask one person, it's probably not a statistical question. Okay? Categorical are questions where you would get words and not numbers. And those are also, you would also need a variety of data to be able to answer that question. And that's what these two have in common, needing variety of data. The last type is not statistical. So there are some questions that cannot be answered using statistics, and we're going to find those out today. These are answered by data that does not vary. So if you were to ask the same question to different people, you get the same answer back. So we're going to take a look at some questions. We're going to think about the type of question each one is, and also what group of people you'd ask to gather the information from. First one is this: what is the most popular shoe brand for students at our school? What type of question is it? It wouldn't be numerical because you wouldn't gather numbers. It maybe is categorical. So what we're thinking is the data we're getting, is it words and not numbers? It would be words, it's shoe brands. And would the data be different for different people? Yes, because different people wear different types of shoes. So this is called categorical. Okay, this is the type of question, it's categorical. And who would you ask? Who would you ask? Well, you wouldn't necessarily ask your parents. That would be an appropriate person to ask to gather this particular data. You would probably ask students at school, probably from different grades. Students at school from different grades. Because if you ask like the same grade, kids in the same grade, they might maybe have, there might be a pattern there that maybe messes up your data a little bit. But if you ask people from different grades, that might make your data a little bit more accurate. Okay, what authors were read the most this year by Mr. Lovering's class? I don't think that would be numerical because you're not gathering numbers, you're gathering words, or, in this case, it would be author names. Would the author names be different from person to person? Yes. So this is another example of categorical, where you're gathering data, but that data is not numbers, it's words or labels, in this case, names. There we go. Okay. Now, who would you ask? You wouldn't ask anybody at school. You'd ask the people in my reading class. So this is students in Mr. L's reading class. That would make the most sense because that's who you're gathering the data from. How much does the average baby weigh? All right, let's think. Is it numerical? Does it gather data that are numbers? Yes. Would the answers vary from baby to baby? Yes, they would. You're not going to get, not every baby weighs the same amount when they're born. So this is an example of a numerical question. It is statistical because the answers would vary from person to person. You're also gathering a number. Now, what population would you gather this data from? You would gather it from, you would look at, I guess, baby weights. Babies/newborns. I guess you wouldn't ask them. You would ask their parents. So the parents of babies and newborns, because the baby wouldn't necessarily be able to communicate that to you. But parents of newborns would be able to provide a specific number for that. The more you would ask, the more accurate that number is going to be. When did George Washington become president? Now, to get the answer to that question, it is a number, because it might be a year or a date. But it's not statistical because you would only have to look at one resource to get that piece of information. Okay? So this is not statistical. There's only one answer to that question. And if you went, let's say you went to different people and asked them, they would either give you the right answer or the wrong answer. It's not like there is more than one right answer to that question. So this is not statistical. So what population? You wouldn't gather this information from a group, so not applicable. It wouldn't matter. What do middle school students drink for lunch? Well, you might get different answers from different people. You'd have to gather it from a variety of people. This would be categorical because the names of the drinks would be what you're looking for. So who would you ask? Probably the same people that you'd ask for the shoe brand, right? Probably 6th to 8th graders. Now, not only would you want to ask like an even number of each grade, but you probably also want to ask the same number of boys and girls just to make it fair that way. But gathering more data from a wider variety of people to help you answer that question would make sense. All right, we're going to try some more, and then I'm going to have you try some on your own. So if you go, well, you're going to stay on the same page. I'm just going to go to the next slide. We're going to look at some different types of questions. How many hours of sleep does the typical person get each night? Now, this word here might be a clue to that particular question. I'm just going to pause here because I have a special guest. Okay, I'm back. All right, how many hours of sleep does the typical person? So this word typical, that's like a key word that if you see that word typical, it's not always statistical, but that's one of the key words that sometimes these questions will have in them to indicate that it is statistical. You'd be gathering numbers because that's hours. Hours would be a numerical value. So this would be because if you ask different people, each person might have a different number for the number of hours that they sleep. So numerical. Who would you ask? So you'd ask probably people of all ages. And you'd want to make sure to ask different people of different ages just because younger people may sleep longer or shorter than older people might. So it would be good to get a variety of ages there. What is my favorite color? So that's not statistical because I would only have to use one resource to find that answer. That'd be me. So my favorite color is blue. So there, I've just answered the question. I wouldn't have to ask a variety of people. And again, if I did ask a variety of people, they'd either give me the correct answer or the wrong answer. So there's only one right answer to that. My favorite color is blue, not statistical. I've already gathered the information. How many years have students in my school's band or orchestra played an instrument? How many years? It's looking for the number of years. So different people in the orchestra or band might have different amounts of experience. So that's going to be numerical. And who would you ask? You'd ask people in band or orchestra. Now, you probably also want to ask people that are not just in like one grade. You'd probably ask like 6th through 8th graders. 6th through 8th graders. If you just ask 6th graders, that's going to cause the amount of years to be a little bit less because 8th graders may have played their instrument for a little bit longer. So you want to ask a variety of people there. All right, what country is the most popular to travel to over summer vacation? If I ask a bunch of different people, I'd get a bunch of different answers. This is going to be categorical because the answers that I get are going to be words. They're going to be country names and not numbers. So it's going to be categorical. And who would you ask? You'd probably, again, want to ask people of all ages. Well, this is talking about summer vacation. So people of all ages at school. So you might ask teachers, you might ask students, but people, outside of school might not have a summer vacation. So their answer might be different. So we want to ask people of all ages at school what they do over summer break. Last one on this page is, how old is Mr. Grubka? Now, that one has only one answer, and if you ask a variety of people, you're either getting the wrong answer or the right answer. If there's only one right answer, the best person to ask for that would probably be Mr. Grubka. That is not statistical. You would not have to gather a variety of data to answer that question. So who would you ask? You wouldn't ask a variety of people. You just ask Mr. Grubka. All right. Once you got that down, you can flip to the next page. I'm going to have you try some on your own. Let me just explain it first. So if you go to the next page, there are 5 questions here, okay? So in a moment, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to, for these 5 questions, to write the type of question you think it is, and then what group of people you would ask to answer this question or to gather the information. So if you could, please pause the video, and then once you've answered these questions for these 2 columns, you can unpause, and then we'll check to see what you got. Okay, go ahead and pause. All right, so this is what I got. We'll kind of go through these real quick. So first one I thought was categorical because you're gathering data from different people. Again, they're going to have different favorites. So it is statistical, it's categorical. You'd probably ask adults between 30 and 40 years old to answer that question. How long does the average person brush their teeth? Again, you're getting different information from different people. That's numerical because the data you're getting is numbers. And you'd probably ask people of different ages because kids may brush different amounts of time than adults would or older people would. In what months were students in 6th grade born? Categorical, asking different people. People are born different months. And you'd ask 6th graders that question because that's the focus of the question. These 2 I had these as being not statistical. This first one, how tall is the Eiffel Tower? There is a right or wrong answer to that. It's kind of like the one about George Washington. When did he become president? Or what's my favorite color? You only have to look at one resource to get that. The thing about the jelly beans one is a lot of people think that's numerical, but they're thinking of the question. They're thinking about like guessing the number of jelly beans in a jar. This is just asking how many jelly beans are in that jar. There's one right answer to that question. The other ones are incorrect. So to turn that into a statistical question, it might say like, what is the average number of jelly beans a student guessed that were in the jar or something like that? What was the average guess of the number of jelly beans in the jar? That's taking a look at the different guesses. This is just asking how many jelly beans are in that jar. That's not statistical. You wouldn't need to gather a variety of data to answer that question. Okay, let's look at the last set of questions here. This is asking us to write different questions, and I'll kind of help you with these, but if you want to write your own, that's fine too. So with numerical, again, there was that word typical. Also, the word average can come up often in numerical questions. So I might say like, what is the average number of texts a sixth grader sends each day. So different people have different answers for that one. You'd have to gather it from a wide variety of people. And the data you're gathering are numbers. So that's why it's numerical. You'd be getting the number of texts that each person sends. So who would you ask? You'd ask sixth graders this question because that's who it's geared toward. A variety of sixth graders. So not just boys, not just girls, a mix of both. All right, let's see if we can write a categorical question. This is one where you have words. What is the most popular car driven by OPMS teachers? What is the most popular car driven by Orchard Park Middle School teachers? That would be categorical. You're gathering information. It's different from person to person, but you'd have to ask a variety of people to get an answer to that. And who would you ask? You'd ask Orchard Park Middle School teachers. Or you just go out in the parking lot and count or see what kind of cars. Although some of those cars might belong to maybe parents that are visiting, perhaps, or some other group of people. So you got to be careful with that. All right, let's write a question that's not statistical. Not statistical. Sorry, just had another special guest, which is nice. It's nice. Not statistical. So we're looking for a question where there's only one answer, and you can get it by asking one person. Okay, so maybe like what is Mrs. Cullen's middle name? I don't think I know it. What is Mrs. Cullen's middle name? So you'd only have to ask one person to get the right answer. All the other answers would either be good guesses or incorrect. And who would you ask? You just ask Mrs. Cullen. That's probably your best bet. You wouldn't ask a group of people, which is why we're putting NA there, because you wouldn't ask a group of people. Okay. The last two are you get the population of the group, and then you're thinking, well, what type of question could I ask that group of people? And then what type of question, what category of question would it be? So what could you ask cat owners? Maybe like how old were you? Or no, that wouldn't be statistical. Say, what is the typical age? What is the typical age when you first get a cat? When people first get a cat. So like, how old were you when you got your first cat? So then you think, well, what type of question is that? Is that categorical or is it numerical? Typical age, well, that's a number, so it'd be numerical. And that's statistical because, people may have gotten their first cat at a different age, but you'd only ask cat owners that, or people that have owned cats. All right, last one is cell phone users. What is a question you can ask cell phone users? Maybe what is the most popular type of cell phone? Popular model of cell phone? Maybe model. maybe I bet flip phone is pretty far down on that list, unfortunately. What is the most popular model of cell phone? So if you ask a wide variety of people, you're going to get a wide variety of answers. That's statistical, and then it wouldn't be numerical because you're not gathering a number, you're gathering a name of a model of cell phone. So that's going to be categorical. All right. So again, knowing what types of questions are statistical can be helpful when you're starting to try to answer a question using statistics. So today we just looked at some examples of them, and then as we go through the unit, we'll be taking a look at how we can answer a question and how we can show that answer using a graph chart or table. All right, well, have a great day. Hope to see you soon. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want, and see you later. Bye-bye.